leaks, in a world where so much gets out, in a world where social media has changed the nature of our communication, we do not know what we're about to see. We don't know the name we're about to hear. And that's why a hush has fallen over this world-class sized crowd. To Father Barron's point, Father, as a Catholic myself, I've heard from people of all faiths, including fellow Catholics these last few days, people saying some form or other of, well, the Catholics do this well.
I think that's true. And again, it's not just a superficial thing, but it's part of our sacramental imagination that we think the physical can speak the spiritual. And then the more beautiful we can arrange things physically, that can speak more profoundly of spiritual beauty. So that is a very ancient tradition that's been preserved within Catholicism, and it's no more clearly on display than right here.
Well, this is the moment. We just passed exactly 1 hour. They're up against no time limit at all, self-enforced, just tradition. It's been on either side of an hour, these last few popes of the modern era, from the first glimpse of white smoke to those doors opening and the announcement coming. We see another shadow of a figure behind the curtain.
And you know, Brian, they have to change into the white cassock. And they have 3 of them, as you know, and they're hopefully one of them close to the size that's right. And so they might be involved in that right now, too.
George, I was just going to ask George Weigel for one more update of what we're going to hear in what language and a quick translation before we hear it.
Cardinal Jean-Louis Thuram will come out and say, "Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum." I announce to you news of great joy. Habemus Papam. We have a pope. Crowd will go crazy. And then he'll give the cardinal's name in Latin. And after the name is given and the crowd goes crazy again, he will say, "Qui sibi nomen imposuit," who has taken upon himself the name, and then we will hear the Pope's new name in Latin.
Your Eminence,
it's one of the nice remnants of the older parts of the church. We were talking here the other day about how at Catholic events around the world, like World Youth Days, when you have 1 million, 2 million young people meeting with the Pope, as they will with the new Pope in Brazil later this summer, there's been a little bit of a rediscovery of Latin as a kind of universal language of the church, at least for some parts of our worship. So it's fitting that the new Pope be announced in the ancient language of Rome, of which he is in fact the bishop, as of the moment when he said in that chapel, "Accepto," I accept.
And for American viewers just joining us, we're just outside an hour since first word. Rome is 5 hours ahead of the East Coast these days. It is a cold night. Thankfully, the rain that fell on the city most of the afternoon and evening hours appears to have stopped. It is in the mid-40s, but a damp cold that does not seem to bother a crowd that goes on as far as the eye can see. And some of them will be at the mercy of loudspeakers and big screen televisions. The lights have gone on, and we see now a figure coming to the curtain. This is the moment, it appears. The figure you'll be seeing again is not the new Pope, but the Cardinal making the announcement. We will be silent for all this except for the first members of our broadcast team to shout out the name as translated from Latin as soon as we are sure who it is. So we will, as soon as they open those double doors,
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Simum ac reverendissimum Dominum Georgium Marium, Sancte Romani Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio.
Bergoglio.
Qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
Francisco.
Your Eminence?
I know him very well, and I like him very much. And we
What
have
is his
a lot
name
of things.
for those of us who missed it?
Cardinal Bergoglio.
Yes,
He's the Cardinal Archbishop in Argentina, and he is a wonderful man. I think he's about 70 years old, and I think you might be interested to know, Brian, that I sent him a couple of the Metropolitan Opera recordings. He's a great follower of our opera here in New York, and I always say, when are you going to come and stay with me and we'll see something here in New York? He's a wonderful gentleman, and did you notice the name is Francis? I don't know if there's ever been a Francis. That will be Francis I. And he is the Cardinal Archbishop Buenos Aires, and I'm very happy to say he was very helpful to me when I had the Synod of 2001. And that was at the time of 9/11. So I came home a few days early, and Cardinal Sodano appointed him to take my place to finish out the Synod. And I know him very well, I like him very much, and I think that you're going to have a marvelous father, a very fine theologian, and a great leader. And I tell you truthfully, Brian, I could not be more delighted.
Well, that's a very quick review from Cardinal Egan. To George Weigel we go. George, your initial reaction?
I met Cardinal Bergoglio in May last year, Brian. We spent an hour together in Buenos Aires, had a wide-ranging conversation about the church in Latin America. He is very much a man of the new evangelization. We talked about the necessity of the church in Latin America and indeed throughout the world becoming a missionary church again. He's played a significant role in effecting that kind of a shift in self-understanding in the Latin American church. He's a very brave man. He was in a really tough situation with the Kirchner government in Argentina, faced that bravely. He'll be a great defender of religious freedom around the world. He's the first pope who was a member of the Society of Jesus, a Jesuit. So there's another first for us tonight. He's a strong man, a man who has, Cardinal Egan was talking about someone who can put up with criticism. Cardinal Bergoglio put up with a lot of criticism from his brother Jesuits for many years. So he's strong that way. He was, of course, the runner-up the last time. A man who had drawn a lot of respect in the previous conclave. So the papacy has moved to the New World, and the church has a new pope with a new name, Francis I, which I think speaks to the church's commitment to the poor of the world, to compassion in a world that often needs a lot of healing.
Latin America has indeed its first pope. According to our briefing materials here, the new pope, Pope Francis, is 76 years of age. It is interesting that in one of the briefing notes from an analyst that I have in front of me, part of what we've been preparing for days on all eventualities, I'm reading the sentence, he is now probably too old to again be a serious contender for the papacy. But it talks about his support, especially among liberal cardinals. It talks about his support for the poor. It talks about his standing within the Jesuit community. It even mentions his diploma in chemistry. So a man of varied interest, probably as close to a polymath as the occupation can get, given the amount of his life given over to service to God. But echoing what George Weigel just said, in what I'm reading, it says his fame has been affected by reports of his role during the military dictatorship that ruled Argentina in the 1970s. And George Weigel spoke to that, also his bearing of courage growing up in the political atmosphere he grew up in. And of course, we're here joined by the Archbishop Emeritus of New York, Cardinal Egan, who was the first to react to the name of his friend, the first Pope Francis.
And I say again, Brian, I know him very well. I think it is the moment of Latin America, and I can assure you that he is not feeble in any way at the 76. He looks very well. He's a Jesuit scholar, a Jesuit teacher, and he has been an example to the people of Buenos Aires and all of Argentina of a man who calmly stands for what's right and just. A man of great compassion for the poor, and I think if you read further, you might see that that is what they point to first and foremost.
That is true.
And I cannot tell you, Brian, how delighted I am. I know you probably say you have to say that in every case, but no, this is a man whom I know and who is very, very good to me. During the time I had the Synod for John Paul II, which was a long, long event right after 9/11, he was the man who came right up and said, "Can I give a hand?" And he became a very good friend of mine and those who were working with me. I have immense admiration for him, and I think you're going to like him a lot.
Your Eminence, George Weigel uses the superb term of the hinge point that the Church is facing right now. Going back to our discussion about the job description, as unromantic as it sounds, being park manager, your assessment of how he will be in navigating what is a huge and unmistakable hinge point for the Catholic Church around the world?
I think you have a very smart man who has known how to run a very large archdiocese in a nation that has more trouble on the political level than many another, and nonetheless has navigated it all very well. And I know from priests who are in that diocese, who are here in the Archdiocese of New York, that he has the highest esteem of those priests here. And I assure you that this will be a man who will know how to, as I said, the Italians would say, how to govern, how to administer the thing, how to appoint people who are capable to take things over and expect responses and respect reports. And I might add, I had all my education from the Jesuits. He's a Jesuit too, and Brian, I think that's a pretty good recommendation.
Ann Thompson, tell us about what it was like in that crowd, because there was the usual, we were switching back and forth Vatican audio, some of it, except for the expert ears of the Cardinal here with us, missed it, and then there was kind of a period of silence as you could almost tell people were reacting. What did he say? What was the name? And what has been going on in the crowd?
There was a hush, Brian, that really came over the crowd. It was almost as if everybody went, "What did he say?" And they didn't. It wasn't a name they were expecting. And I think it just in our little area, people are going, "Bergoglio, where is he from? Pope Francis, what does this mean?" And I think the other thing, it's not a name people expected. I think his age, 76, I mean, all the talk we heard was how the Church needs a younger, more vibrant face, all in the lead up to this. And for someone who is, yes, he's from the New World, that's a first, but for someone who's much older than was expected, let's see, do we have something going on here? I think it was a little disconcerting to the crowd. But they are here, they are waiting. They've got as you can see, it's just a sea of cell phone cameras waiting for the moment when he walks out, and here it is. Pope Francis I.